So in this clip, I'm making a zucchini and eggplant lasagna. I saw an idea posted from somebody about how their mother-in-law would make a vegetable lasagna instead of a traditional noodle one. And I decided to try my hand at it, and I used my food processor with a slicing attachment to get really thin slices of the veggies. And then to make it even lighter, I did a blend of part skim ricotta and full-fat cottage cheese instead of full-fat ricotta. And like a traditional lasagna, I mixed that with a bunch of spices like garlic, oregano, basil, and some Parmesan cheese. I left out the egg because I don't do well with eggs, but you could do that too. It doesn't really need it. So I basically used the food processor 3 times with the whole thing. I sliced the veggies, I made the ricotta mixture, and then I shredded the cheese as well. And then all you want to do is just layer everything. Because I was making 2 of them, I froze one of them. But you take pasta sauce, lay it down just like a lasagna, layer the veggies. I tried to do them in a thin, even manner, and then layer the ricotta, the sauce, repeat until you get to the top, and then you dollop it with cheese. So we baked one of them the night I made this, and then I froze the other one to pull out for another day. And it came out pretty good for winging something like this. I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing, but I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10. I think differently, I would have chosen just zucchini, or I don't know, the eggplant was a tiny bit crunchy. Maybe it could have gone in the oven longer, which now that I'm thinking out loud, probably. But yeah, I would definitely give this a try. I used to make lasagna in the past, with Hearts of Palm lasagna sheets. They have those, they're the Palmini brand. Those were actually pretty good. They served the noodle replacement well, I thought. If you use the spaghetti, it kind of tastes like a weird tang, but the lasagna sheets, everything's in quotation marks, did fare pretty well. So yeah, overall, I would recommend making this. I'd probably get rid of the eggplant, or maybe if you want to be extra, bread it and then put it in, but that's a lot of steps. So I wanted to make chili and cornbread this week for a dinner or 2, and I was like, okay, chili and cornbread, so good together. This cornbread was maybe the best thing I've ever made. Top 5 best things I've ever made. But holy moly, I think part of the reason was the butter. I used an Icelandic salted butter, and European butters have a little bit of a higher butter fat. I think it's 84% versus 80 to 82 is what American butters have. It was so good. So when I do brown sugar, I either do Swerve. If I'm cooking like mostly for us, I'll do Swerve, or a brown sugar blend. So this is a Splenda brown sugar blend, and then I creamed it with the butter. And then I had buttermilk from a cake I made my mother-in-law for her birthday, and I had that left over, and I was like, buttermilk cornbread, yes. So I'm going off of a recipe I found online, but I always do my own thing. Baking, you can't totally wing. It's unfortunately a science. Not my personality. So I always, when I am baking stuff, I know conversions, and I can substitute xylitol or a sugar substitute for 1 cup of sugar, yada yada. But I do go off stuff in that case. So yeah, when you cream the sugar and butter together, if you're doing a cornbread, a cake, whatever, it gives kind of like this fluffy texture to whatever you're making. So I think that definitely helped, because I had never done that with a traditional cornbread recipe. And then in addition, this recipe, and most of them don't call for like a vanilla extract, I added my favorite vanilla butternut extract from Lorraine Oils, and that I think put it over the top too. And then I'm just adding the dry ingredients to the wet. I'm not very specific on wet, dry ingredients all being perfect, because it's all ending up mixed together. It's fine. A lot of recipes will be like, put all the wet and all the dry, and I'm like, I'm not dirtying multiple bowls, thanks. Something like this, it doesn't matter. So this called for an 8x8 pan, and I had a pie plate. I don't own an 8x8 pan. I don't know why. Only a 9x13. We don't eat in 8x8 quantities. That's too small. So I used a pie plate, and that was a good decision too. This came out I can't even put into words. I also underbaked it a little bit by accident. Highly recommend. And I think we ate a lot of it even before we had the chili. It was that good. So definitely a 10 out of 10. Okay, and here's the chili that we were gonna eat with the cornbread. I used to, with my food processor, be like, okay, I can do, because it's a 16 cup, I was like, okay, I can shred a bunch of cheese, I can chop a lot of onions at once. Too big of a project for me. I'm not a chop by onion all the time type of gal, but being that organized and in bulk, it didn't work either. So anyways, I realize I like buying pre-chopped onions that are frozen because it's very simple. However, this was left over from my phase of I can get it all done and freeze it and use it for a future date. Abbott's ground beef is very macro friendly and it's good if you hide it well. So I've roasted it just in the oven and but in this you can't even tell it's there. So it just adds some protein and a little fiber. So I'm adding that in and browning it like I would ground beef and then adding some tomato paste and some beef broth concentrate and then some spring water, and I'm basically making a broth with this. I added liquid smoke, which is kind of like a fake smoke flavor. It's pretty natural though. And then I also did a little bit of balsamic because I needed some acid in it and I didn't have lime juice. So that was the next best thing I had. And then with chili, anything goes. I add a little bit of Worcestershire too because that gives it an umami, kind of beefy tasting taste. And then this is some Kinder's wing sauce that's like a barbecue sauce. I need some sweetness in my chili. I just had it in my fridge, so I put it in there. And then the fire roasted diced green chilies, those add a ton of flavor. I love those. And I also ended up adding fire roasted tomatoes. Don't love the texture, don't love the flavor, so I won't be doing that again. And you can also add your favorite beans. So I love kidney beans. We had black beans, my husband's favorite. And then I think I did pinto beans as well. I really bulked it up with the beans because I wanted it high in fiber and, again, a little bit of protein in there. We love eating this with cornbread or tortilla chips, light sour cream, or you could do Greek yogurt and a little bit of cheese. And then basically you want to bring it up, get it to a boil, and then simmer it for however long. I also added some fire roasted corn. I had that in the freezer and I'm like, why not? This is a double batch, so I took half of it and froze it just in individual portions so I can easily microwave it. And then the other half we'll have for the next few days. And I definitely recommend, this is a perfect thing to make if you just want to make one thing and then have it for the rest of the week to bring to work, to eat quickly for lunch. It's perfect.